supposed to say something like 3, 2, 1, record, just to make sure that it's being recorded. And that would start out just last time we kind of went through some stuff about the floating bridge of heaven. Okay, and one of that's a very important leitmotif. That's a literary term. The sensei refers to it a lot, like his speech is literature, but it also is an archetype. It's a pattern that emerges quite a few, a symbol. Okay, and we're going to recap that and go a little further, and then we're going to take it into motion. Okay. Okay, so oops. So this is what we did last time. All things begin by standing on the floating bridge of heaven. In Japan, this has never changed from the start. When you stand on the floating bridge of heaven, place yourself right in the middle, neither stretching toward heaven nor leaning towards earth. And that's kind of what we referenced. I guess it was on Friday, okay? Feel the presence of the divine. Focus on the source of creation and progress. If you don't, you will sever your ties to heaven and earth, and between yourself and the universe. Stand on the floating bridge of heaven to absorb spiritual energy. Okay. There's a lot of instruction there, obviously, but he tends to kind of put something out, and he goes into a couple of different directions. Okay, but neither stretching, towards heaven nor leaning on earth. And we were kind of mentioning, you're easy in both directions. He says, place yourself in the middle. Where is the middle? Well, it's right where we are. We happen to be here. That's the middle, unless we're kind of. Now, the other thing I just did is I'm leaning out, being absorbed by what's going on out there. When I do that, I tend to kind of jerk myself around between this and that. So partially, there's an alignment. And then there's also a corresponding alignment this way. Okay? And each time you offer a prayer, offer it to the universe. In other words, I'm usually praying for something to happen. I want this, okay? But oftentimes it just rebounds kind of within my own conscious and subconscious. But he says, offer it. Okay? Offer it. And sometimes, we pray and we get something, and sometimes we. Okay, so offer it to the universe. Then you will find yourself in the heart of creation. In prayer, when we offer to the universe, we sort of have a type of a relationship established. And that relationship means a prayer to some degree. It's a part of a process of creation. So we offer it, something comes back. How? Back, creation. Standing on that floating bridge. You will never find paradise by rummaging through heaven and earth. Spiritual seeker, materialistic, back and forth. What paradise means is paradise is paradise. Where is paradise? The universe itself is one big paradise. In other words, the universe kind of in its rhythm, balance, perfection is something pretty profound. Okay? The essence of your being, your core, is there. In other words, as we properly align, we become a part of that. It's like an inheritance. Okay? That is the principle behind the unity of government and religion. He tends to veer off. But let's just say that one of us was around, that we would be attacking him, and he would be in another timeline. Okay, so his thoughts are very, very multifaceted, and he changes lanes constantly. That's why he's hard to follow. How was I able to discern this truth? Well, no one else in the martial arts had perceived it. I mean, there are spiritual traditions in martial arts, but he's kind of saying that he found something that was pretty unique. Okay? I trained in all kinds of martial arts styles, but all of them were based on systems created by human beings, and thus provided me with no answers. Okay? Then where did I find the answers? Within myself. I was enlightened to this within. And one thing about neither stretching that way nor leaning that way, we probably start to open up an inner dimension of ourselves. Okay. I was enlightened to this within. How is this enlightenment to be achieved? Stand on the floating bridge of heaven. So he's giving us a little bit of instruction right there. Stand on the floating bridge of heaven. In other words, it's experiential. I mean, he's kind of revealing his truth that he found within. He's sort of encouraging us, I think, to look within. But establish position. Okay? Every living thing has the possibility of obtaining enlightenment. If human beings are not enlightened to the basic truths, there is no way the world can be saved. Human beings are the measure of heaven and earth. And he might be talking about the world situation today. So he passed away in 1969. The difficulties that were going on there maybe have intensified. Okay? This world is divine. Human beings are the children of the divine. This body of ours is a living shrine. There is no need, however, to dabble in low-level spirit possession or other shamanistic acts, to jump around wildly and scream. Those are external, all right? Very easy to get caught up in the outer of things. Just concentrate on fulfilling one's mission as a normal human being. Now is the time. The time to act has come. So, that's in this book, it's about 2 full pages. And couple of things right there before we get up. Yeah, we're still on course. Position. Simple act of, he says, place yourself in the middle. Okay. The answers come then from within. Personal, direct experience. And he really talks about basically, doing martial arts and training in different styles and not getting the answers. And he said, these were all created, he says, by men, because it's pretty much in that time period a very masculine-based system, martial arts, Japan. So the Aikido, as he was doing it, I mean, there's a lot of activities around, most of which, probably we'll get something from. But if we're looking for certain answers, you may find something here or there. But again, it goes back, doesn't it, to stand on the floating bridge of heaven. Place yourself in the middle. The answers come from within. And he talks about something called enlightenment. Well, that's a pretty big enlightenment. The answers come from within. And gives us a little bit of instruction on positioning. And he just says, stand there. Okay, we get very busy learning this, facing all these contradictions in the world. Just that simple act of positioning, opening. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, I'm kind of in here because I get better ventilation back in that other room right now. That's kind of an important thing. So let's position that there. Create a little bit more space. And I'm going to start out with very short. Okay, very short. Very short. Okay. For one thing, I can go bonkers here. I'm not going to smash anything. Whatever, so I'm just starting to move around. Before those movements, where did I learn those movements? No, you do learn sets, okay? The position. Okay. Place myself in the middle. Where's the middle? It's right where I am. It can be over here, or over here. Or if I change rooms, it's there. And neither stretching towards heaven nor leaning on the earth. Okay. Now, initially, we're doing certain movements, right? Those movements, obviously that was a striking motion, could be there, or it could be a thrusting motion. Let's talk all day heaven. I call that, the water, fire, or the center circle changes, okay? Right, if you kind of look here, my hands form the center point, there's a circle around. Okay. Thumb down, change, fire. Thumb up, change, water. And that's arbitrary. So I call these, if I kind of go here, it has right here, for example, that motion expands out. Or conversely, that motion comes back. Figure 8. That motion can go out. Whoops. And that motion can come back. we can go out with this motion, figure 8, come back with the other motion. Now we can go out with that motion. We can reverse and come back. Now, if there's a constant, it's all that activity out there. It's this positioning. See, I'm learning a movement. I'm learning another movement. It's right about here. In that positioning. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why. The thumb went down here. We started with this motion. See, that's an expanding motion. Now, that same grip and motion can come back. Where does it come back to? It goes back to here. And where is here? And easy with this motion and easy with that direction. I'm standing in the middle. Now, we can go this way. It's an expanding motion. Okay, same motion can come back to the center. It's all activity. Now you may say, well, I need to get better at. Yes, sure, there's a process where I, as an individual, am learning. So and then it comes back. That's just knowledge, the position. The same motion goes out, comes back. Same motion on the other side goes out. It's expanding. If we add the other side, it's a double movement. And conversely, the double motion back. Okay, so those are patterns of movement. Patterns. Okay, now, for example, here, that's the thrusting motion, the covering motion. This is common. Most Aikido movements, the second motion is a movement to the right. Hikizuchi Sensei kind of taught it a lot. To the left. I go left. I don't go right. Okay. Although right is okay. Okay. But what I kind of find, just my own thing. You know, I go here, I go right, the right steps in. Okay. When I go left, it opens up different energies. Okay. And if I go right, I get caught in a bunch of, it's not bad stuff, but I would just say, how Sensei said, you get any answers from, all these martial arts you study because they were created by men. Okay, now some person, obviously going this way, boom, boom, boom. So you can make a form of this, but it's just like, okay, now this opens me up to different energies. Now, those energies can move and also exist over here. But even here, I'm going, boom, go that way. So I find that's kind of a densifying motion. And I get caught up in certainties, right? And certain things like the election was stolen, and you can't change my mind. Boy, there's a lot of confusion in the world, isn't there? It's a little different. For me, the left motion, that is not as big as whatever. Now, one thing the Do Sensei kind of mentioned to me once, she says, Isamu Sensei almost always stood in the left Hanmi. Now, of course, it starts out left, but then it goes right pretty quick, right? The left. Now, from the left, a variety of different moves. Boom. So, what I'd like you to do a little bit, exercise, research. I'm going right and covering. And then, boom, I can just thing and go back, or I can go on. I can step in, boom, 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 boom. Not wrong, it's just a lot of times, Now, try the left motion. Try the left motion. If you go this way, then, there's nothing particularly. But if I go this way, boom, and then I go left, and I go this way, I'm going into a direction where I can get pretty locked into judgment. Okay, and here, I find that's much more of an open type of motion. So just a lot of staff movements. People stay with those sensei, they kind of created their own movements off of it. Now, it's a bit more advanced, stay with, boom, or boom, and see. Okay, so that's a little bit we call research time. Anybody, and you may not, I don't know, maybe, you may be picking up something different. But for me, it's very different. I go this way. See, well, basically this is a blocking motion. They can boom down, but you also can step in and enter going that way. And I'm going this way, boom, right? It takes me down a different route experientially, okay? Obviously, I was taught this motion, all right? And I was also, in my day, I was taught this motion, okay? And personally, I go left, but I can go right with the same feeling, okay? So, anybody with a comparison? I mean, that's what you call individual research. Okay, remember, Sensei said the answers come from within. I'm giving you my experience, but there's a lot of room for you in your experience. So the motion left, the motion right, boom, boom. Okay, anybody with a observation or question? You don't have to have an answer. See, the question itself is a more open space, isn't it? I'm just, I gave you my own particular thing. But again, what O-sensei said, it comes from within. Okay? Basically, see what happens when I go right is I'm either going to go in there, bomb this way, or I'm going to drop my weight and go that way. If I go this way, boom, boom. Yeah. All right. And again, somewhat cryptically, right? Apparently, O-sensei stood in the left behind me a lot. Or, Nado sensei even put it, O-sensei was always standing in the left behind me. Okay? And left is a funny concept because, such a right-sided world, right? Left is kind of something that's usually underdeveloped, so to speak.
Well, I'm left-handed, so all of this is different.
Yes. Yeah, okay, now being a left-handed person, what commentary do you have on the movement right versus the movement left?
I don't know that I experience it all that differently. I mean, I've had to develop my right a lot in a right-handed world.
Yeah, sure.
And with staff especially, I could switch sides. So there's really 4 things I could do. I could do left moving left, left moving right, then switch it completely and do right moving right and right moving left, and have a mirror image of both.
Okay. And one thing I was sensei saying, don't stretch that way or don't lean that way. Don't set going this way or set going that way. It's just very fluid, isn't it? I make a rule. All of a sudden, Aikido becomes a divided camp. This way, this way. We have a schism. It happens in religions many times. All right, we have a Republican Party and a Democratic Party. And we may have the Republican Party splitting. You see, that whole thing of a schism is, okay, I'm going to take my belief system, all right, and start my own group. We're allowed that. That's called sort of like free will, right? Except most of the time we're reacting against something out there, so it's not free. I don't like that, so I'm going to do this. I think I'm right when I do this, and you're wrong when you do that. So, all of a sudden, it's not free will. Free will says you can go right or left. I mean, you can go right and boom, or right, boom, 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 boom. Nothing wrong with right. It's just for me, there's a definite feel when I go left, not just because I was taught that way, because I was also taught initially. The first set I was ever taught was a 21 movement set that Koichi Tohei sensei did. It went this way. And then that was no longer in vogue. So I was taught the 31 movements, and it goes this way. Okay? I learned both of those things. Maybe not terribly well, but, okay, I went to Iwama. Saito sensei didn't work with me personally on that. We did a little bit of one-on-one, just that way. But every other day we went out, we drilled by the numbers in the 31. So I was given that. So it's not, there's nothing wrong in learning a pattern. Okay. But I think what O-sensei said is that, he got no answers from systems that were created by men. Okay. And you could argue, well, I like this better. Okay, then all of a sudden you're kind of in the Republican Democrat thing, and it'll splinter further. You have progressives and moderates. See, there's a whole gradation of different things, right? All right, and oftentimes, that's about people who won, that's their own personal belief, but it also at some point becomes to their personal advantage. As for politics, the one thing he was talking about was politics and religion being more of a spiritual sense of things. to really unite them. Okay, and that is a very, very, very tricky thing, especially in this world. Okay, and again, right there, going a little too this way versus leaning this way. All right, and the word that comes for me constantly there is discernment. Well, Sensei puts it this way: discernment is the sword of IQ. In other words, I judge this must be the right way. I judge this must be the right way. No, I mean, basically, boom, 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 boom. But we can go this way, boom, 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 boom. And what happens is that we make it into a form. We make it into a belief. Therefore, it becomes a judgment. All right, left or fine. Don't edit out the right side of your body just because, I'm becoming a toxic male. Yeah, maybe. I want to cut off my right arm. Well, that's a little extreme. But maybe what we can do is say we position the way Sensei was talking about. Don't be overbarreling this way or underdeveloped this way. Put yourself in the middle. All right, so we do have this motion. We also do have that motion. So for me, I mean, I kind of find a bit more freedom. So my discernment, as best I can, somebody said, well, that's a judgment. Depends on who says that, right? Because if somebody says, oh, no, that's wrong, because da, 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 it's like this, Sensei got his stuff. In other words, he was probably taught a bunch of moves. But, he got his stuff from what we might call the kami. So there were no, and then what else did he say? Well, the answers come from within. Okay, so where does that place the kami? There are forces out there, energies, but also those forces are mirrored in here. You got the answers inside, didn't you? That was another, if you go through that passage we read, there's some very important stuff there. Okay. So, you can make a form of going left and laugh at the people going right. And then you're repeating the whole drama of humankind caught out there in a very unbalanced state. And there's an area where, discernment comes. See, for me personally, that motion there is very different than that motion. And that's just my own discernment. I'm just saying that there's nothing wrong with going this way. But it's easier for me to discern certain things when I go left than when I go right. That's just a personal thing. Okay? And if we make too many rules, the sense of things gets lost. Okay, one thing Nado Sensei said is, Sensei had one of these little short pointer sticks. Now we're inside. I can go crazier here with this without knocking something down. Give me something longer, I'm going to break something, probably unintentionally. But all of a sudden, this is a prayer stick. All of a sudden, this is a sword. All of a sudden, this is a spear or staff. Boom, boom. One. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So within that, there's a freedom. In fact, Nado Sensei said he was going to ask Sensei for Sensei's stick, bring it back, kind of meditate with it, things like that. And he said, darn, I wish I had done it. Well, chances are Sensei was saying, Nado-san, take this part of me back with you, it'll keep you on the path, but you have to ask for it and stuff, So chances are that wouldn't have been so scarred in the Osensei psyche if it hadn't been that Osensei was saying, you have to ask for it. You see what I mean? And in some sense, that also is the truth. The universe is the way it is. But, I'm going to try this, but, you have to sort of ask to stand there. I'm going to stand there. It's already I, ego. See, the question asking, can I? Please allow me. And, Osensei didn't say stand there. It said, ame no uki hasha ni tatasarete. And tatasareru is a complex verb based on tatsu. Ame no uki hasha ni tate. He didn't say that. Ame no uki hasha ni tatasaseru. Tatasaseru. Sase. Allow me to stand there. Not, I'm going to stand there. So allow me. Allow yourself to stand there. It's an open statement. And we get really good at closing things off, which means we're kind of more in a judgment. When I'm in a judgment, my judgment's better than yours, okay? But boom, 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 certain discernment is freer, okay? So for me, standing on the floating bridge, best I can do it, given this instruction. Since he might have a fan, he might have a short stick, he might have a long staff, or a jo. In Chingu, it was the bow, all right? 5 foot, it was pretty long. Everywhere else is the jo. Don't ask me why. But Sensei taught the bow in Shingu, okay? In Shingu, they went left, okay? Boom. Allow me to stand, which means I got to get there. Nah, I got to make it here. Boom. So more of an open system, but then again, there's the discernment. There's that motion, that motion, that motion, that motion. Okay? So the sword of Aiki, or the spear of Aiki, to me, standing there, we acquire the power of discernment. Okay? Which is different than judgment. If you say, well, I'm not going to make a rule to go this way, no, or this is correct, it's like all of a sudden we're in a judgment. Boom, 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 that's it, or boom, boom, boom. The discernment is a freedom going both ways. One may help you a little better than the other in catching something. Okay? Any questions or anything you notice with that?
Sensei, in the context of exploration and experience of the feeling and experience of both sides, would you recommend trying to practice or learn your staff spear misogi on the opposite side?
That's totally up to you. I know that my Tai Chi master, Master Choi Kamaman, there was a thought that, you did the set on one side, and then you did the set on the other side. And what he said was interesting. He said, the people that recommend that you do both sides have this thing that, if you just do it the way, you'll be like this. He said, that's not correct. You'll become like this, right? Then the other point he says is that, if you split too much, you oftentimes you have to learn right, you have to learn left. Well, you mean learn neither, to the degree that you don't necessarily specialize, but the whole point of it is not how many kata you learn and how many different sides you do it. It's just, is can you position there? Can you allow yourself, will you allow me, this question to the universe, please allow me to stand on that floating bridge. Okay? In fact, he said it, what's it? I mean, there's a whole bunch. Aikido to you no wa, ame no ukihashi ni tatasareru koto de arimasu. And he said that thing which we call Aikido is to be allowed to stand on the floating bridge of heaven. Then everything else was supposed to come into focus because we find ourselves in some degree of focus, which means that we are open. But am I open to corruption? Am I open to lying? Am I open to, or is there a discernment there? Right? In other words, very open, and there's discernment. And discernment is something that what was discernment 5 years ago is not discernment right this moment. We're supposed to be developing. That's one of the hard lessons. It's moment by moment. Okay? But since you said never go right on that move, I said, no, that wasn't what was being said. That was 5 years ago, but if you're still, that's between your ears, and there's something that's been missed. Okay, so I thought what Osensei said is the martial arts he learned that were created by men or human beings didn't give him any answers. He probably learned a lot, but he had to go within. And the whole thing I was taught by the kami, what's out there is in here. So that part of it is a very important thing, and especially these days with all this bipartisan this and that. Gee, I mean, we've got the pandemic, and we just experienced another impeachment, and there's all this stuff going on out there. And here we are, kind of, socially in this more shrunken state, due to the pandemic. There's a lot going on. So I think it becomes increasingly important to position. Okay? Now, let's see. Anybody else? By the way, we're moving along. I want to get back into the 30 movement set, misogi, gyo, whatever it is. Okay? Okay. Let's me. Okay. All right. Now for the record, we go left on that motion. Okay, so, right, okay, all right. But starting out, now the obvious is that we can get caught up this way, or put yourself in the middle. So movement number one. 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to change angles. 5, 6. Now 7 is to the left here. Up and down. That's both 7. 8 is a repeat. 9, 10. Thumbs face, second change, 11. I'm going to change angles here. 12, 13. Change hands again, thumbs facing, 14, 15. Back to the second change, thumbs face. 16, 17, oh. Thumb space, 18, 19, 20, 21 is a step forward. 22, this is the Gokyo chain. 23, 24, step back. 25, step back again. 26, 27. When the second you grip with the right hand, it starts 28. Sweep, turn, cut. 29, thumb space away, thumb space, 30, step back. Okay? So, okay, now what I'm going to do it from a different angle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you try it a couple times on your own, see if we have any questions. Okay. So let's check in here. Okay. So from two different angles, we kind of went through our 30 movement sequence. Again, I call it a misogi, a gyo, not a kata. Okay. Anybody with a question or? Anybody?
Just that it's starting to flow better.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I mean, when you're first learning something, it's kind of awkward. You know what I mean? You're learning it. You learn it, you forget it. See, what's interesting is O-sensei told Ano-sensei, learn the technique most of each time, then forget it. Because if you learn it too much, you get very rigid with him. But he wasn't talking about go blank, forget it. He was talking about it was a freedom, a fluidity. And again, I'm judging this at the moment. You discern that's there. Boom, 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 boom. can make a form of something, or you can realize within that form there's several phases here. So, just taking movement, and there's a movement within that motion, or movement within that movement, within that movement. So the whole thing starts to orchestrate a bit differently. If you're kind of, Nido Sensei likes the word sense. What do you sense? So for me, the word that works better for me is, what do you discern? What do you discern? My judgment is, I do this movement strong enough, I'll be better than most people. Okay, that's the judgment. And I tend to get heavy and thick. Have a pretty good idea of, sensing myself. Discernment's a little different. Discernment. There's that motion, and there's that motion. In the moment, there's that motion, or there's that motion, that motion. That gets bigger, deeper. This gets more expansive. One may be back and forth, and then that motion comes out. And in the moment, discernment, which is very fluid, and boom, boom. Okay. And then for me, I'm standing more in the middle when I can do that. Okay. Yeah, the actual spiritual dimension is important. The physical training is important, but we stand in the middle. Yes, you're going to do that. You're going to investigate that. Yes, you're going to do that. But that positioning is crucial. And not just as a form, but increasingly checking yourself out as he or she who stands kind of in the middle, so to speak. And then the answers come from within, because what's out there is kind of mirrored here. And if we get it here, then all of a sudden we find a corresponding echo. So it's a boom prayer, boom. It starts to be, at least at his level, a type of an echo phenomenon between your interior sensing and or discernment and the outer movement of the universe at his level. So we're all working on. Okay. Anybody else with a question or observation on that? Because that's important. Okay. Now the 30 movements, first level is you learn the steps, but you're constantly refining the steps, even on that. And there are other things we've done, but we thought we'd do is okay, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So use that last third of it, movements 21 through 30, as segueing into maybe what we might call the takemusu dimension. So here, oh, 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 oh. Yeah. Now, initially, we're kind of learning, well, there's this way, and there's this way, and there's this way, and there's this way, then there's this way, and there's this way, and there's this way, and this way, and there's this way, and there's this way. Okay, so yeah, we learn it step by step. Okay, but increasingly, we I mean, it makes more sense to me personally that way than it does step by step. For me, the step by step is a lot harder. I get lost much more in the step by step. But here, boom, the step by step, boom, 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 boom. Okay. So try that a little bit. That's a kind of a segue into what I call more the Takemusu dimension. The first 10, second 10, they're kind of giving you the basic tools. You know, your thrusting motion, your cutting motion, your turning, sweeping motion. But that last series of 10 is kind of a segue, a preview of the Takemusu, for me, what I call. Somebody else says, Jack, you're totally off, but I call it that. Okay, so try it a couple times on your own. Okay, so that last 10. Anybody questions or observations? It's, I guess, a different feel. So, you know, initially you got to move from 21 through 30 like the rest of them. Then you start to kind of, I call it respectfully messing around. You always respect the source material. The source material comes from Wada Sensei. Okay. What do I get from watching Wada Sensei versus a lot of the people he trained? He respectfully messed around with his source material, which came from Kami. Much more than they did. They kind of looked at him and they created their own version of what he did. Okay. And the movements that he did came from Kami. All right. Stan Pranin actually said something that was very interesting. He said that, you know, he would show, or, you know, a lot of real classical martial arts teachers would look at Wada Sensei and they'd be very critical of him. This is kind of interesting, you know. Well, you know, he's Wada Sensei. Yeah, no, there's nah. Because if you're looking at him in terms of exactly what they were, these are certain truths. Boom, boom, boom. And what he's doing is very fluid and very free. Okay. And they were critical of that. So it wasn't like, wow, here's genius. It's like, that's kind of weird. No. Yeah, because if you're doing this in terms of like, you know, the system created, I mean, you know, within what Wada Sensei was doing, you know, a lot of his top students, they created a form or set off of what he was doing. Did he do that? Well, probably. All right, there are enough similarities between them. You figure, yeah, they generally all start out, you know, with a thrusting motion, and they either one you can go left or you can go right. Boom. Okay, so, but all right. So I'm just saying, respectfully mess around. Respectfully. If you start taking the staff and beating people over the head with it, or you get carried away and demolish, some fine china that's being displayed, that's not being respectful. Okay, all right. But what do we want? Okay. Well, basically, what I want, and I've said this before, is that what you really want to do is you want to begin to create what's called organized chaos. If it's just chaos, it rips you to pieces. If it's too organized and structured, what is organized chaos? It's fun. You organize it too much, yeah, you got to do some of it. But if it's too chaotic, that ruins the fun as well. Organized chaos. And what makes it fun? Because it's something you love. It comes out of love. The fun comes out of love. And there's kind of a wild quality to it that you don't want to totally tame. And if that wild side of you gets out of control, it's going to turn destructive. So it's organized chaos that comes out of a loving feeling. Boom, 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 boom. That's all just me messing around. Somebody says, what did you just do? I said, I don't know. But it's organized. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. It's organized. Is it fun? Yeah. Why do I do it? I love it. And when I'm in that love, I'm much more, I'm much more open. I'm a better person than when I'm having to defend what I believe in as truth. So it's, okay. And the me that's there can help create a better world as opposed to, having to defend point of view. Okay, boom, boom. So what I'd like you to do, is just for a minute, stand up, create some respectfully mess around and create some organized chaos. You got a minute or two, let's give that a try. Don't break anything, don't break yourself. Anyway, well, just like you to not stop having fun, but one of the things, whether you like something or you're dedicated to something, it all comes out of the fact you love it. What's going to allow you to keep standing in the middle of the floating bridge of heaven? Love for yourself, love for the universe, love for your fellow beings. And as you discern stuff, some of it's just the world is in a lot of pain. Why would you keep going? Out of love. Well, Sensei was quoted once, Robert Fraser Sensei gave me something. And the sensei defined misogi as love protecting that sacred love. Okay. Sadaharu said that, his whole baseball career, which was sort of inspired by O-sensei telling him to learn to wait, came out of love. Not hitting home runs. But the love that was there, he was able to endure the exacting, in some sense, the Japanese term shugyo, become arguably the greatest hitter of all time. Okay? Came out of love, not out of having to beat people and winning. Came out of love. Okay? So, the part of the stuff that we're doing with this that's a very important thing. And sometimes we're put, there are intermediate steps where, if we build 2 laps, all of a sudden we got to do something we don't love to get back into balance. But then there's a greater love that propels us to put up with that awkward period. Being able to put up with ourselves during this pandemic, what is going to sustain us is love. It all goes back to that. What is the act of standing on the floating bridge? Positioning yourself here or there is really grounding in yourself enough to get in touch with that. Then we'll be motivated to do the training that's necessary, the learning that's necessary, putting up with the necessary, not that any evil is necessary, but sometimes you have to step back and say, I can't do anything about that right now, but it still hurts. But the people doing the hurting, if we start to judge and hate them, we become like them. So what keeps us going? It's love. Not in a sappy sense. And how do you really do that? Well, it's through discernment. Yeah, so that's in that way, it's a pretty, as O-sensei defines his particular stance on Aikido, is pretty all-encompassing. And it's exacting. We fall off of it every other second. But we really just continue, get back up just like Ukemi, and reposition there. And what keeps us going there is not the desire to win, which is very, very intoxicating to the eye. It's love. Sometimes, we got to be able to embrace defeat. A second acquittal in impeachment, okay. I have a lot of judgments about that. It takes a lot of something to say, I'm not going to define myself by my hatred and my judgment. There's many other things to focus on that need my particular prayer time. Yeah, I'm not going to ignore that either. Okay? It does sensei sometimes we have these discourses, Jack, why don't you pay attention to this, that, And, I've never said it to him, but, I have a daughter, I have a granddaughter. And I'm somewhat worried about their future and the future of the planet. He doesn't have that, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know his total history, but I don't think he has a child or a grandchild. If you're a part of that, you're part of the structure. What in the Lion King they call the circle of life, you worry about what's going on out there for your family. He doesn't have that. Okay? Now there are reasons for it, but I do. On the other hand, you can get so worrying about everything like that, you stress out and lose yourself in the worry and the judgment and the hatred. Okay? And it's an endless cycle. Okay? One thing that I've been watching lately, an old 90s show, actually, Xena Warrior Princess, which actually, it's on Roku. You can stream it on Roku, right? It has
I love that show.
Great show, great show. Because the obvious character is really about kick-ass, right? But it's kind of like the world is so weird. You get basically gods that are just selfish, and she has to face those. It's a little bit like Elric in the Michael Moorcock books. In Stormbringer, what does he have to do? He has to face his own gods of chaos. And the only thing he's pulled by this black rune sword that grows stronger and stronger. He's not the agent of chaos, even though he is of chaos. He is what? He's the eternal champion, which means, that age of sorcery is going to blossom into our current age of science. And it's
I think Elric would be at home in 2020.
Yeah, I would think so. There were some pretty good uses for Stormbringer. A great line. I'm not just going to kill you. I'm going to steal your soul. And that's tempting. That's kind of why I think Moorcock. I read somewhere his early works. He's a much better writer if you go through his later works. But there's a raw power to his early stories when he's young and he's wrestling with a lot of issues. And, he puts Elric out there. And Elric helped me through grad school. And, that area where, you got Xena or you got Elric. Sensei's take on the warrior archetype was probably similar and yet different. He wasn't an action TV hero, nor was he, a sword and sorcery character hero. Okay, he was kind of more really. He was flesh and blood. He walked among us, but he was on such a path that even though the art is somewhat diminished by the cultural tastes right now, it still speaks to us. And so when he said his words have power, if you look at photos of him, they have power. They still move us. And so, they help us to stay on track. In other words, what is it being on track? Well, he says, stand on the floating bridge. Okay. I don't think he really would care how strong your decal was. But if he saw you being able to position there, he'd probably say, good. And when he was alive, he might consult with me a little bit because I know there are definite ways that you can lose that alignment. But for now, good. And from there, you'll do enough of the grounding training and you'll explore the finer dimensions and you'll always be able to come back to the middle. And so I think, he would say, stay with it. Apparently what he would tell people, you're not doing what I'm doing, but continue to train. And so kind of within that, you see, there's a point where, when he says stand on the floating bridge of heaven, that's kind of like a prime directive that we get pulled out by a multitude of different things, right? And so, when I'm kind of doing these movements here, boom, 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 for me, it's organized chaos. I'm respectfully messing around. Why? Because it comes out of a very original place of love. That keeps the messing around respectful. It keeps the chaos sort of organized. You see what I mean? You have to find your own words. if I say anything about chaos, the docent goes absolutely bonkers. Doesn't like that word. Okay, but I do. But I don't want chaos. I want organized chaos. I want creation that's affirming, has a direction that's good for everybody. Therefore, good for me. So it's organized chaos. If you just have chaos, it goes to stagnation. At the end of the Elric books, it's very corrupt. You know, you might call the members of Congress kind of like human beings who sold out to the chaos gods. It's incredibly degenerate. And there's Elric, who comes out of this lineage of emperors that are absolutely the worst. But he's sort of different. He's an albino, and he's tied to this black rune sword. And he has kind of a mission, which is sort of, it's like, I think Moorcock probably said, darn it, I wish I hadn't killed him off in the second book. Because, all the other stuff are prequels. But by actually giving it an end, when he was kind of in that very seminal period, when all these things were coming through him, there's a power to Stormbringer in that book, right? And so, there's that area. Whoa. And, I mean, with Elric, there's an area where, would we be able to face our own gods? But Xena does. She has to get in with Ares and Sisyphus and other ones there. The Wonder Woman, the first movie, I was really disappointed by 1984. I hope, you found more meaning than I did. It was like...
I haven't bothered to see it because of that. Everyone was disappointed.
Well, you've sort of got to see it because there's good parts to it. But, it's almost like if I were to talk to Patty Jenkins, I would say, the first one was so good, she just wanted us to go back into, like, not saying, wow, into a more realistic thing. But I don't know why she went into that particular direction.
Before we get too far off what you were saying earlier, I wanted to mention, this won't show up in the video, but you can see there's an album by, I'm a big Beatles fan. There's an album by Paul McCartney.
Okay.
Cover has a picture of him as a teenager in the backyard, taken by like his aunt or someone, and it's called Chaos and Creation in the Backyard.
Really?
And yes, 2005 album. And it's really, I mean, it harkens back. There's a wide variety of songs on it. And it's one of his better solo albums post Beatles. But, what he was putting right out there in the title and the picture of him in the backyard as a teenager, looking back from 2005, is the idea that creation and chaos are intertwined. They're not the same thing, right? They're two different words, chaos and creation in the backyard. But he's sitting there playing guitar and he's in the backyard and he's creating something.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd throw that out there because it seems very germane to what you were saying.
Well, the universe itself, obviously, there was a blueprint or design in the original mind. And there was also matter, energy, the body of creation, right? And so the whole thing is kind of mapped out, okay? And the third element is consciousness. Really, there's a certain amount of consciousness in matter, whether it's biological or not. I mean, you can, I got this at a summer camp in Santa Cruz, and they had absolutely no intention of buying another Boken. There. And then, they were selling these at the front desk, and they're about 5, and so I picked them all up, and just went, wow. So I bought it. And somebody came in and says, are there any good ones there? I said, I got the last good one. There's an area where, I like this because it has enough density that you're working out, but it also has a fine vibe to it. And I swing this a couple of times, and I'm back on course. No, it's really a thing, but you can just go over the impeachment and the vote and the acquittal and go absolutely nuts. And there's so many deafening voices here. But if I pick this up and swing it a couple of times, I'm back on course. And I swing it for a long period of time. Depends. Or if I pick this up or something else up, I'm back on course. Nado Sensei said, Sensei had his props. He carried a book. He would have a fan. He would have what he would call his prayer stick. And he was never without one of them. Why? Because the world itself pulls you out. And even he probably needed certain reminders. Okay. Because when we go out there, we get caught up in the chaos of it or the organization of it. Right? And it's called organized judgment. We can't impeach that person. He's no longer in office. That's organized judgment. Yes, he broke the law and everything like that. He's accountable, but he's no longer in office. There's no impeachment. That's organized judgment. Now, on the other hand, I can go out there and no, we're all accountable. Words have power. Especially when you're the president, you go out there and it's all documented, can't be refuted. So when you go into organized judgment, you get bipartisan and worse. And you can get caught up in all this judgment and hatred. So I picked this book and up and swing it a couple times. I'm back on course. So yes.
Comment on that.
Yeah.
I have noticed over the years, I have a pretty good Boken and a pretty good Joe.
Yeah.
I also have some really well-made, two of them really well-made sitars, and
Yeah.
I've played on a variety of like practice instruments, and I have used like dojo equipment of various dojos of various quality. And I've noticed that a good weapon and a good musical instrument both make you better, right? The same way like a good training partner makes you a better trainer, the way you version of yourself, right? So I just think that's pretty cool. I mean, like when you're talking about that one Boken, you know, you get just one or two swings.
It's just sort of position. It didn't need it, but it's a reminder.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I mean, Stormbringer was kind of an exaggeration of that notion, that the idea that a really good weapon makes you a better swordsman, right?
Well, part of it though, I remember when we met, I met Michael Moorcock at that event, right? The book binding place. And I kind of mentioned one of his later Elric stories. It was just a short story called Black Orchid. And I just told him I thought it was brilliant. Because it was a novel. It basically, when he goes into the novelization of things, to me, he becomes more like Sir Walter Scott. Okay, in other words, he fleshes other characters out much better than he used to. But sort of this, the Elric experience is Elric, being in this situation where he's fighting himself because there's Stormbringer, right? And in Black Orchid, he's got all this sharp wire around it so he won't draw Stormbringer. But then there's this plant that's out of control, devouring people. And so he has to actually make the choice. And Stormbringer is going, oh, draw me. And he's going, no, I'm not going to go that way. And he has to kind of take all that wiring off and draw Stormbringer. And so for me, that was that whole thing right there, which was almost like, you know, because it was a very imaginative story. It's a short story, Black Orchid. Okay. And I read it, I was thinking, wow, because I told Michael Moorcock, I thought that was a brilliant story. Okay, because a lot of times some of his later stuff is better literature.
What did Mike say when you told him that?
Yeah, but you know, the actual reason why, you know, you would really want to watch, you know, read an Elric book is, I think there was a novel he wrote called The Black Pearl, where he goes into a dream dimension and conceives a child with, and it's a beautiful story.
That's The Fortress of the Pearl.
Purchase of the Pearl, that's it, yeah. And so what happens is, at the very end, Moorcock, it's really what you want. There's Elric and Stormbringer, he demolishes an army. I thought, okay, this is just for you old-time Elric fans.
It's totally over the top.
Sing that song and demolish this evil army, and wow, everything's good with the universe. Anyway, I gotta get going because somebody's supposed to call me at 1:30. So I thank you all.
Thank you, Sensei.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you, Sensei.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice to see you again, Chris. Bye. Thank you, Elle. Nice to see your eye, Bonnie. So, how you doing? Glad you